I had a couple people inquire about the Madmansdiary touring guitar rig, so here we go. A late 80s JCM 800 with a Lee Jackson modification on it, installed quite some time ago by the one and only Obed Khan. Sounds unreal. A 1966 and a half Fender Dual Showman for clean. Used to have a mod on it, but we pulled it out. I have stereo Marshall cabinets. I own 6 of those. The center center 4 speakers are greenbacks. The outside speakers are vintage 30s. This is called a 3-cabinet system, so you have center dry and wet left and wet right. I mic these cabinets with 3 Sennheiser 609s. I'll explain that a little bit later. I have a Morpheus polyphonic whammy pedal, great pedal. I have a Morpheus drop tune pedal. That thing will do a 7-string guitar. The reaction time is unbelievable. There's no latency. If you want a low A, that's your pedal right there. A Bob Bradshaw wah-wah pedal. In my opinion, probably the finest wah-wah pedal in the market. You can dial it in to do a Hendrix wah, Cantrell wah, Dimebag Darrell wah. And how many of us have cried to Obed Khan to put a preamp in our wah-wah pedal? And Bob Bradshaw has finally done that. He put a great transparent preamp in it, ready to blast off. A volume pedal. Not really a volume pedal, but it's a voltage pedal. The signal path never goes through that pedal, but it does control the volume. An expression pedal. I can bring in and out any effect I want, anytime I want. Wah-wah pedal. I mean, it's a Y for whatever you want. Voodoo Labs power to power it all up. Bob Bradshaw MC402. It's a boost or an overdrive. I use the boost side. I don't use overdrive or distortion with the Marshall. I just like to crush the input of the Marshall is what I normally do. A pedal, Line 6 wireless. Great little unit. Voodoo Lab Sparkle Mod Drive. I dirty up the clean tone with it. Sometimes I use it for my Marshall, depending on what song it is. This is the Bob Bradshaw controller. It controls all my pedals, the volumes, everything there is to control, it does it. There are 4 hush units in here, and it's kind of the floor unit for the whole system. A Roland GR33 guitar synthesizer. It'll do organs, Hammonds, synthesizers, strings. I'm waiting for Foreigner to call me so I can do a saxophone solo in Urgent. So please call me. You got my number. A sampler. And I use that quite a bit on the Ozzy project for gongs, explosions, sirens, and whatnot. So if you hear some weird things going on, that's where it's coming from. So over to the rack. This is the rack. A Korg DT1 tuner, an Alesis stereo compressor. One side's for the clean tone, the other side's for the sampler. And one sampler goes to the front of house. An EQ, and I'll explain that later. TC Electronics G Major 2, and I have a G Major 1 down there. Unfortunately, you can't see it. The G Major 1 stays on the same program, which was wrote primarily for a 3-cabinet system by Bob Bradshaw. So it just stays there. It's a great program. So really happy to have that. The G Major 2 runs choruses, delays. It's a smart harmonizer, does all that. The Road to Nowhere has harmonizers. There's all kinds of things that have a harmonizer. So Rocktron 300, it's a compressor for the Marshall. And here is the Bradshaw system that controls all my effects. Everything is plugged into the back of this thing. All my effects. when I call for them, and they're there. So here is a rack drawer with some effects in here. A brick for powering it up. Your usual suspects, MXR phaser, MXR flanger. I've got 3 T-Rex pedals. I love these pedals. They're a boutique company out of Denmark. I've got a tremolo pedal. I've got an octave divider, high and low. It's got a booster on it. It's got a mixer on it. And I use it for over the mountain, and I take the high end and cut it, and use it for Black Sabbath. Since we're doing a lot of Zakk Wylde, by law I have to have a Leslie simulator. So there it is. And so that's the rack drawer. So it gets put in here, and they call for it when I wanted to call for it. I've got it's an Eptech hum eliminator that was actually suggested from Bob. I assume it works. There's no hum in the system, so it works. Thanks, Bob. Now this unit right here, the silver unit, is half of the unit. This is the amp selector. My guitar goes in here first, and my amp heads go in here as well. The inputs and outputs. So the outputs go in here, and then it goes straight to the center cabinet, which is center dry. My center speakers never have effects on them, ever. So, and the other half, which is over here, knocks down volume and takes it down to line level, and then I have 2 signals. My Fender signal and my Marshall signal goes up into the Bradshaw system. There's all your effects. The wet left and wet right are 100% wet. And then out of the Bradshaw system, you're asking me, how do I get it back up to a high volume? Well, I have a Carvin tube power amplifier. Pretty transparent. I'd love to have a VHT or a Freyet, so one day I will have that. I've A-B'd them. Not quite as transparent as I'd like. So that's where the EQ comes into play. As you can see, not a whole lot of boost, more cutting than anything. So I've got them pretty much transparent to my dry tone. So my wet speakers are exactly the same tone as my dry speakers, but the wet tones have all the effects on them. So that's the rig. Hope I said it plainly. So get out of here. I gotta start practicing.